The Oath Keepers are taking over law enforcement. That's one of the latest concerns that the mainstream media is so panicked about. In this video, we're going to take a look at the leaked data breach that found that the Oath Keepers membership was far bigger than anyone in the mainstream media dared to consider. We're going to see just how far they've infiltrated law enforcement all across the country. And stick with me to the very end of this video where I'll reveal precisely why the Oath Keepers represent the future of law and order in our nation. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone, patriots all across the globe. Dr. Steve with you. Great to be with you. As always, I am your daily fake news antidote, offering patriotic analysis to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. If you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we begin, I am so excited to announce our new Conservative Patriot Live virtual event on November 12th and 13th, where I and several special guests will teach you to help build a society completely free from all things woke and to experience once again the nation that we know and love. It's a virtual event. You don't even have to leave the comfort of your own couch. And over the course of 2 days, you're going to learn how to become a part of and help build parallel structures in our society so we can all be free once and for all from woke corporations and woke institutions. So make sure to click on that link below right now to get your tickets to this awesome and unique event. And to make it even sweeter, if you click on that link below right now, you can take advantage of our early bird special and register at a super low price. But that special offer is going to expire on Wednesday midnight. So don't wait. Don't miss it. Click on that link below. Take advantage of our early bird special, and I'll see you for a weekend that promises to be a game changer for your life like never before. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. We got some amazing developments going on in the rising world of Patriot militias. Now, if you're a regular to this channel, then you know that we've been tracking with the surge in Patriot militias for well over a year now. And what studies have found is that that surge is due, at least in part, to the growing alliance between Patriot militias and law enforcement throughout the nation. And now we have some new data that's come our way showing just how deep that alliance goes. Now, if you don't know, several weeks back, some hackers breached the Oath Keepers website, okay? The Oath Keepers are one of the largest national Patriot militia organizations in the nation, but the media never quite knew how big they were. They thought their membership was mainly 10,000 or so, perhaps more, perhaps less, until that is, the media saw this data that was hacked. The hackers published the data they stole from the website, and their findings were utterly shocking for the mainstream media. It turns out that there was a file that purportedly provides the names, addresses, and phone numbers of upwards of 40,000 of their members. The Oath Keepers are far bigger than anyone in the media had thought up until that point. But what shocked so many in the press even more, and keep in mind it was not shocking to us, we knew this because we've been following these trends and these developments for months now, but what shocked the left-wing activists disguised as journalists in the mainstream media was just how many law enforcement officers and officials were among the Oath Keepers membership. There were over 200 names among the 40,000 that were indeed law enforcement officers. But the key here is that the vast majority of their membership refused to list their information about their employment. So USA Today concluded that those 200 were most likely a very small percentage of the actual amount of law enforcement that are currently active members in the Oath Keepers. In fact, according to its founder, Stuart Rhodes, who is himself, interestingly, a Yale Law School grad, the Oath Keepers are made up primarily of active and retired law enforcement officers and military personnel. And this is what I think is really catching the mainstream media off guard here. They've convinced themselves that Patriot militias like the Oath Keepers are just a fringe movement. Nobody takes them seriously. They're marginalized. They're conspiracy kooks, you know, all that sort of stuff. All of a sudden, they're realizing, whoa, wait a minute. These guys, they're not just infiltrating law enforcement, they're like taking it over. For example, the ultra-leftists over at Salon.com published a rather hysterical piece exposing one Oath Keeper who was chief of operations for the sheriff's office in Yuma County, Arizona. Again, his office oversaw all law enforcement operations in Yuma County. Another sheriff in Riverside, California is being implicated in all of this as an Oath Keepers member. In fact, if you don't know, we did a documentary video on why Patriot militias are surging. You'll definitely want to check that out. I'll link it down below for you in the pinned comment section so you can watch it after this video. But in that video, I noted the fascinating alliance that's been building up between Patriot militias and law enforcement. And as part of that alliance, a number of law enforcement officers are actually quite open about their association with the Oath Keepers. For example, Politico did an article just last year entitled, "How the Oath Keepers Are Quietly Infiltrating Local Government." The article highlighted Hood County, Texas, which is a good conservative community outside of Fort Worth, and the article zeroes in on their constable. Constables in Texas are akin to sheriffs, right? They're elected to office once, I believe, every 4 years, and they can appoint deputies and the like and all that kind of stuff. And the constable of Hood County is a proud and very open member of the Oath Keepers, and he's not alone. There are actually several Oath Keepers who hold office in Hood County, particularly law enforcement office. And this appears to be really freaking out the mainstream media. They're suddenly realizing that Patriot militias and law enforcement are becoming more and more identical in many respects. So, for example, the ultra-left British paper Guardian, they ran a rather panicked and sensationalist headline, "White supremacists and militias have infiltrated police." The Washington Post complained that police were refusing to control Patriot militias, largely because law enforcement actually locked arms with them in response to BLM and Antifa protests. A number of media outlets are recognizing that militias and law enforcement are indeed becoming indistinguishable in many parts of the country. So why is this? What's going on here? Well, in many respects, what we have to understand is all this sudden concern about the rise of Patriot militias and they're taking over law enforcement, frankly, is all too little too late. And that's because what's happening with law enforcement is the same thing that's happening in quite literally all other sectors of society. It's a rise of what historically has been referred to as a parallel polis. It's basically an alternative world or economy that represents an alternative or parallel world to the woke corporations that are acting in tandem with woke governments to suppress free speech and patriotic sentiments of faith, family, and freedom. So we're seeing, of course, the rise of alt tech. We're seeing the rise of alt news media in the guise of Breitbart and Epic Times, Newsmax, talk radio, and the like. We're seeing the rise of alt currencies, right? Of course, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin that are increasingly being recognized as viable currencies that aren't tied to any particular government or state or corporation. Think El Salvador, even Russia is now starting to recognize them. We're seeing the rise of alternative banks that are dislodging themselves from the Federal Reserve System. We're seeing the rise of alternatives to health insurance and the guys who are what are called healthcare cost-sharing ministries. I've actually written a book on them that, interestingly enough, the Amish have been using for years. We're seeing the rise of homeschooling and alternative education to that of the public schools. And we are seeing the rise of parallel law enforcement, right, in the guise of militias, when Democratic city councils threw law enforcement on the bus with this whole defund the police nonsense. In other words, as our woke world looks more and more like it's beginning to decay and fall apart, or in President Trump's words, turn to shit, increasingly parallel structures and institutions are organically rising up to take their place. And that, I believe, is exactly what we're seeing with Patriot militias and traditional law enforcement more or less becoming more and more aligned. So obviously, we'll be keeping our eyes on how things develop here. But as I pointed out, the mainstream media's concern over all this is just all too little too late. The horse is out of the barn on this one. A parallel society that celebrates faith, family, and freedom is rising, and there's absolutely nothing that a bunch of woke leftists can do to stop it. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out that video documentary on why Patriot militias are surging. It's going to absolutely make your day. Check it out. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.